And the other thing we really care about is we don't want to just send money to California where Gavin Newsom decides he's going to rebuild LA in some way that benefits his governorship or future Olympics that's coming to California. That would be incredibly wasteful and not, it wouldn't help the people of California. We don't want Gavin Newsom and Democrats controlling that state to use the money appropriated for the victims of wildfire to use it to house illegal aliens or somehow affect their future elections in California so that they never lose, which seems to be the situation as it is.
All right, guys, good Tuesday to you. A lot to get to today. I mean, a lot. Some days you just get blessed with a lot of stuff to talk about. But let me kick it off with some housekeeping stuff. On the inauguration day, I had some choices. What do I do? Where do I go? And I thought, where do I want to spend my inauguration day? And it's with you. You and me. That's right. In all seriousness, I thought about it. And I was like, what if we do we watch it live together? And having been there, having been on the platform during the first one, I give you guys some insider scoop about what's going on, how things are playing out. I was literally feet from President Trump. I told you guys I've been posting stuff on Instagram all week, put some pictures in the newsletter this week. Obviously, I'll continue to always sign up at SeanSpicer.com. It is free. And I love VIP members. It's like $70 a year and you get access to all my stuff. So if you want to join it, but my point is, plan on spending Inauguration Day with us live. I'll take your questions in the YouTube chat. So if you want to know something, what's really happening, who's going when, and how does this play out, I'll be able to give you guys live feedback as this thing is happening. So we'll obviously do the show later in the day, as we always do, to give you some insight into all that. Great discussion about his speech, etc., and hopefully have some insight. But before that, watch it with us. Tell everyone that, none of these other media types has ever done that. So I can actually tell you what's happening, which I think is kind of cool. So I'm spending it with you. Come spend it with me. And then for those of you who tune into the morning meeting that we do every morning live on my YouTube channel here, we're going to do a live event in Washington, D.C. at the Pearl Street Warehouse. It's awesome. I did my first book event there. It's my first book event ever. I know the owners. It's an amazing venue in the new waterfront area of DC on February 2nd. It's a Sunday afternoon. I think doors open at 4. It goes from 5 to 6 or 7. I can't even remember. But feel free to join us and come into DC, buy the tickets. If you go to twoway.tv, and it's actually the numeral 2way.tv, you can get your tickets there. I'll put the link in the show notes. I've tweeted it out. Put it on Instagram. I'll have it in SeanSpicer.com. But if you want to come be part of it, I know I saw a couple of you in the YouTube chat last night during the show saying you're flying in. Awesome. Love to see you. But as I mentioned, Marjorie Taylor Greene's here, and I want to break down some of the Pete Hegseth nomination stuff with you. Before that, I just got to talk. If you guys know somebody or yourself or your business who are overwhelmed or have back taxes or unfiled returns, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the IRS has hired over 20,000 new enforcement agents, and they're sending out these pay-up notices. We've talked about this before. If you're worried about getting one of these because you know that you have money that you owe or unfiled taxes, get ahead of the curve. Call the best folks in the business. Tax Network USA, TNUSA / Sean Spicer, full name. These guys know the IRS inside and out. They know what agents you can deal with, which ones you can't. They've recovered over $1 billion for their clients. I mean, so this is no joke. I've told people, I don't care if the DOJ is calling you, the IRS or whatever. The federal government has infinite resources to come after you. It's a fact. I've seen it firsthand. We've all talked about it with the DOJ. The IRS is the same way. They'll squeeze anything they can to get money out of you. And the folks at Tax Network USA are the best at advocating for you and fighting for you and winning for you. They know exactly what they're doing. Like I said, they know the agents. So whether you owe, $50,000 or $5 million, don't go it alone. These are the best folks in the business. Handling the IRS without professionals on your team is nuts. So don't wait any longer. As I said, go to tnusa.com / Sean Spicer or call 1-800 958-1000 for an absolutely free consultation. These experts that they have there will walk you through all the steps. tnusa.com/spice, Sean Spicer, or call 1-800-958-1000. All right, as I mentioned, Marjorie Taylor Greene is here. She'll join us in a second. She was at that meeting in Mar-a-Lago, and it can give us some real insight into what they're talking about, what the way forward is, what the agenda items are, etc. Okay. Pete Hegseth kicked off the big nominations today on the Hill. He is the nominee to be Secretary of Defense. It took like 8 seconds for the Democrats to go all spider monkey on him. Jack Reed, the senator from Rhode Island, the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee who's holding this hearing, just goes after Hegseth right out of the gate. No pleasantries. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
Mr. Hegseth, I do not believe that you are qualified to meet the overwhelming demands of this job. We must acknowledge the concerning public reports against you. A variety of sources, including your own writings, implicate you with disregarding the laws of war, financial mismanagement, racist and sexist remarks about men and women in uniform, alcohol abuse, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and other troubling issues. I have reviewed many of these allegations and find them extremely alarming. Indeed, the totality of your own writings and alleged conduct would disqualify any service member from holding any leadership position in the military, much less being confirmed as the Secretary of Defense. Nonetheless, I understand that you reject many of these reports as they involve whistleblowers, non-disclosure agreements, and anonymous, although numerous, sources.
Well, of course, he was aided by a bunch of left-wing nut jobs in the hearing. Multiple times, these people interrupted the hearing. I mean, I get these are public hearings. Anyone, actually, if you come to Washington, you can just queue up and go to a hearing. Some are more popular than others. Sometimes you just walk in. Sometimes there's a long line. But, you know, this is not how these things, like, be respectful, folks. And these guys are nut jobs. And they're interrupting him. Take a look. This is what I'm talking about.
Veterans are committing suicide and are homeless. My father, a veteran, committed suicide. And you're sending money to
Sit down. You're going to go sit down.
I'm leaving, man.
Bravo, take him. He's leaving.
He's going out.
Bravo, he's fine.
Yeah, that happened multiple times. But Pete Hegseth came ready to go. I love how he laid out his priorities, talking about getting the Department of Defense back to actually protecting us, promoting people because they actually were good at what they did and they were good officers or good enlisted members. Wow. Maybe doing what the military is supposed to do. Kind of like how businesses should do what businesses do. This is what I'm talking about. Take a look. This is Pete.
The Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength. And in pursuing these America First national security goals will remain patriotically apolitical and stridently constitutional. Unlike the current administration, politics should play no part in military matters. We are not Republicans. We are not Democrats. We are American warriors. Our standards will be high and they will be equal, not equitable. That's a very different word. We need to make sure every warrior is fully qualified on their assigned weapon system, every pilot's fully qualified and current on the aircraft they are flying, and every general or flag officer is selected for leadership or promotion purely based on performance, readiness, and merit.
His priorities are in the right place. That's what I'm talking about. Like, it's actually not, like, this is what we should want from a Department of Defense and from a Secretary of Defense. Democrats, obviously want to talk about his personal life. Fine, that's fair. But don't you worry that the Pentagon can't pass an audit? Don't you worry that we're not hitting recruiting goals? That our priorities are more about making everybody feel good than whether or not they can actually fire a gun or drop a bomb? I mean, our job is to defend our country, to deter threats. And their priorities are not where they're supposed to be in the current administration. And Hegseth made it clear, look, this is what Donald Trump wants. He wants a lethal fighting machine that deters threats, protects the homeland. Wow. Passes an audit so that our tax dollars are better spent or more effectively spent. I don't think that that's crazy. I don't think that that's partisan. And actually, Hegseth actually says, talking about the fact that this shouldn't be partisan. Protecting the country should be an American thing, not a partisan thing, a Democrat thing, or a Republican thing. Nuts. It will be interesting to me. I don't think the Democrats, a single Democrat, will vote for him. This is squarely in the hands of Republicans. So let me lay this out for you. When Pete first got nominated, you heard senators like Joni Ernst of Iowa. They kind of stuck their head up and said, "We're no," and then everybody in MAGA world went after them. Basically, they never said they were going to vote for him in some cases. They just punted and said he deserves a hearing. That's Washington talk. That means I don't want to say anything, and so I'm just going to punt the ball and get by the holidays because I want to go to parties. It will be interesting to hear if we get a whip count soon. John Thune, the senator, the new Senate Majority Leader, told President Trump, reportedly, I think CBS News was the one, that Trump could pull this off. So I'm just saying, we'll see. I think he did a good job today. I think he laid out his priorities well, correctly. But some Republicans have issues with Pete. And the question is, when do they say them? And if he loses more than 3, we got a problem. But the president should have his national security team in place on day one. This is not a joke. You think about the threats that we face. It's not just about getting, as Pete laid out today, our priorities back in check. It's about keeping the country safe. You don't want some bureaucrat running the Department of Defense while we figure it out. That shows weakness, lack leadership. We need Secretary of Defense. Republicans need to stay strong on this, but let's remember this. I don't think he's getting a single Democratic vote. Not a question about it. Do Republicans stand firm? They're already saying that the net vote will be next week, next Monday. A lot of people are reading into this. What does that mean? Does it mean, good, we want to have a vote because we want him in office that day when President Trump gets inaugurated? Or is that a way to bury it? I don't know. If that's the case, if they're trying to do some kind of trickery here, that's not smart. Letting him hang until Inauguration Day will not be forgotten. That's not good for the country. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to show you, contrast that, you want to talk about qualifications and leadership. Gavin Newsom is not, like, I feel bad for the people of California. I really do. I mean, I couldn't imagine dealing with the consequences of these fires, knowing that you've lost everything, and there's such an incompetent moron running the state. I don't know, maybe I picked up on something, but I want to show you an interview that he did because it's so weird. And, you know, Tim Walz talked about weird during the campaign, but this I think is weird. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Play the video, please, and I'll explain as we watch together.
Over the course of the next several years, Los Angeles will be host to the World Cup and then the Super Bowl and then the Olympics. With this rebuilding effort needing to take place, is LA going to be ready for all of those global events?
My humble position, and it's not.
Okay, stop for a sec. Stop. Do you see what I'm saying already? Is he a sign language interpreter on the side? What? Or is he calling baseball signals? I don't know, but I'm immediately getting distracted here. Like, I literally feel like I'm watching somebody interpret for sign language. All right, let's go back, because I'm getting distracted, and I'm wondering if you are too. Keep going.
Just being naively optimistic, that only reinforces the imperative moving quickly, doing in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation. President of the United States, Donald Trump, to his credit, was helpful in getting the Olympics to...
Okay, stop again. Stop again. What is up with this? I've never in my... at least as far as I can recall, I've never seen anybody do this. What are we talking about? I mean, look at the weirdness of this. It's such that I'm getting distracted watching this, and I'm wondering if everybody else sees this, or am I just picking up on something? Keep going. Let's go. There's a few seconds left.
The United States of America to get it down here in LA. We thank him for that. This is an opportunity for him to shine, for this country to shine, for California and this community to shine. The opportunity with all of that and all that opportunity and that pride and spirit that comes from not just hosting those 3 iconic games and venues, but also the opportunity, I think, to rebuild at the same time. And that's why we're already organizing a Marshall Plan.
Okay. All right. That's enough. This is, I mean, honestly, I don't mean to be nitpicky, but it's just so weird. He's like, I can't tell. Is he doing sign language? Is he calling baseball signals? Like, he's like, he had a chance to rise and for us to be together. Anyway, it gets weirder and weirder. Anyway, a couple other interesting points, because some news came out before we get to Marjorie Taylor Greene. On Wednesday, President Biden's going to give a farewell address, right? And then he also announced that he's doing an interview with Lawrence O'Donnell at MSNBC at 10 p.m. on Thursday. Okay, let's just be clear. Everyone's like, is it going to be taped? Is it going to be taped? It's 10 p.m. That guy's been asleep for 5 hours. You want to know if he's going to be taped? I can't believe people are actually speculating on this. And by the way, Lawrence O'Donnell, I mean, come on. Like, I didn't expect much. But you might as well just sit down with Corinne Jean-Pierre and have a little back and forth and send out the video. This is crazy. By the way, Laken Riley bill, shouldn't forget that. It's up in the Senate today. They need 7 Republicans. I think they're going to get them all. Still silence from the White House. So keep that in mind. And last night, special counsel duel. David Weiss put out the comments on the Hunter Biden special thing. Here's the thing that was so interesting on this. This is the one line I want to read you. This is what David Weiss, the special counsel who prosecuted Hunter Biden, said. Other presidents have pardoned family members, but in doing so, none, he's referring to Biden, have taken the occasion as an opportunity to malign the public servants at the Department of Justice based solely on false accusations. Wow, he's going after Biden. Well, not to be outdone, wackadoodle Jack Smith also released the Trump special counsel report. By the way, big difference. Hunter Biden actually pled guilty and was pardoned. President Trump never actually went through the process. So why are we falsely maligning him? I don't understand. And Jack Smith's out there, well, I could have won this. Well, of course you think but let's just look at your record, Jack. Even though cases that you won have been overturned by the Supreme Court, a la Bob McDonnell, the governor of Virginia, but I digress. Anyway, it's just unbelievable what's happening before. A lot of other confirmation hearings going on this week. We'll be covering them all and getting to that. In the meantime, Marjorie Taylor Greene is here. Let me bring her in. Before I do that, real quick, you guys, a lot of New Year's resolutions out there. I made losing weight. Well, I made it last year. I'm going to do it again this year. There is no better company or plan that aligns more with the Make America Healthy Again movement than PhD weight loss. I've told you guys this before. Seb Gorka is a friend. I've been on his show. He's come on mine. I asked him months ago what he was doing because both him and his wife, Katie, look phenomenal. He told me about PhD weight loss and why it was different, because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and he was right. You meet weekly with a nutritionist. There is accountability. There is weigh-ins. They create a plan for you. They talk to you about when to eat, how much to eat, right? They create a plan to lose it and then to maintain it. Look at me. I mean, I feel great. I'm down a few pounds and I'm on a path. I love this because it's actually about creating something that's not a fad diet. So it all starts with a simple phone call. Call PhD Weight Loss today at 1-864-644-1900. Tell them I sent you. Better yet, go to myphdweightloss.com, myphdweightloss.com. It is time for America to get healthy again and do it the right way. Do like I am doing and start with my PhD weight loss. All right, without further ado, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Want to welcome back one of our favorite guests, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Congresswoman, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Sean. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I want to get into this whole Mar-a-Lago thing, what you guys talked about and what you see as the agenda going forward. But there's two things that I want to get your take on. I was excited about you coming back on. And then I saw this headline yesterday about your ideas for addressing some of the things in LA in terms of the fires. Can you explain what you think could be an option out there?
Well, I think there's a lot of options. Number one, California needs to be more about competency when they vote for their leaders instead of their sexual orientation or their skin color or whatever fits their DEI requirements. And that really goes to Californians. You guys need to vote better. And if you vote better, you get better results. And the rest of the country is cheering for you. We really don't want to see your cities and neighborhoods burned down. We'd love to see your forests cleared. We'd love to see your water reservoirs full, and they should be. And we'd love to see your taxes come down and life be more affordable to live in California. So that's up to you guys in California to do that. Just the other day, I tweeted or posted a very snarky post, and I said, why don't they just do some sort of geoengineering or cloud seeding to bring some rain to California. Sean, it's been interesting. Myself and my staff and some others here on the Hill have done a little investigating into our government's funding and really leadership into geoengineering. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. And it's done all over the world. And
it's done all over the world. Like this idea, cloud seeding is basically when they manipulate condensation in clouds and try to get it to come down, right? But was your point more to say, hey, if you guys are spending a ton of money on this, utilize it, or were you advocating as a method to address LA currently?
It was not a specific. It was more of me. I guess I'm poking the system, right?
Right.
The system that constantly calls all of us conspiracy theories when we talk about the truth and reality. And that was really the tone of that post. But sadly, people are the victim of all types of geoengineering, and they shouldn't be. And geoengineering could be used for good. And in this case, maybe to put out California wildfires. But the reality is, tragically, many people's homes and businesses are being burned. And it's really the fault of the irresponsible leadership in California that didn't do anything to prevent this and didn't have systems in place to fight these fires when they break out. And another thing, Sean, we can't ignore the fact that this is very likely arson. It's not climate change. The climate is not changing and sparking fires all over the place randomly. These are people that are probably lighting these fires, whether they're climate change activists or perhaps terrorists that have come across our wide open border in the past 4 years.
So you guys in Georgia experienced a massive, horrible natural disaster that wreaked havoc on so many people. And I look at the people in California, and I agree with you. There's got to be accountability for poor leadership. The idea that fire hydrants weren't working, that reservoirs weren't ready to go. Like Gavin Newsom's been in public office since I was in diapers. The idea that these guys weren't ready for this is a lack of competence. That's the bottom line. You contrast this with Ron DeSantis, your governor, Brian Kemp. But here's my thing. The people who live there, I feel bad for them. I cannot fathom what it's like to lose all of your worldly possessions and your community to go up in flames just because you have horrible leadership, et cetera. That being said, there's a big discussion on the Hill about how to support them from a federal standpoint. Mike Johnson has floated this idea that there's got to be some accountability, right? Because we're not just going to give them money and then have them do the same stupid policies. A lot of folks, Hakeem Jeffries came out today and said, we're not even considering that, right? Where is that line between wanting to support people on a human level to get them the help they need and saying, hey guys, like if you're going to keep doing stupid things, we're not going to give you all the money?
It's very simple. And this is how it's going to be, Sean. This country is about to see and feel a complete change in leadership for the entire country, the United States of America. And that's going to happen on Monday, the 20th, when President Trump is inaugurated and his entire administration comes into play. So that's number one. That's the start. Number two, what we're going to do, and we just discussed this in our conference meeting this morning, and we've been discussing it in many of our meetings, is we're going to wait for a request from the state of California, And then Russ Vought, the new OMB director, will be in his job upcoming very soon. And we will work with the administration. Congress will work with the administration on the appropriations request for California. And if we have to set guidelines in place, basically putting rules on California, forcing them to be responsible for their citizens for any future fires, such as maintaining water reservoirs so fire hydrants are never empty, such as clearing their forest floors so that there isn't just dry wood and debris laying around easily for any arsonist or any campfire to get out of control. We may have to do things like that until the good people of California can vote and change their leadership. And I really think they want to, Sean. I think the good people of California are realizing that voting because they like someone or voting for someone because it makes them feel charitable and like they're doing a good thing has really led their state to disaster. And we look forward to seeing people in California, because so many of them are so smart and good-hearted. We look forward to seeing them change the leadership in their state. And Congress will be here waiting their requests. And if we have to appropriate money for them, we want to do it responsibly.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's so many times, like, this has just shown like a big light on competence. Like, if you're going to elect someone to do a job, you might want to make sure they actually can do it. But I liked what you said just a minute ago, or at least how you phrased it, because you said, we're waiting for California to tell us what we need. I remember after the recent natural disaster, the hurricanes that went through North Carolina, Congress, someone just threw out, we're going to send them $100 billion. And I'm like, wow, that's just such a perfectly round number. How did you randomly come up with that? And I feel like after these things, there's like a bidding war to see who can care about people the most by throwing out the biggest number, as opposed to saying, do the math, right? You know, when you have kids, the teacher always says, show me your math. Show me how you came up with this problem, because you want them to fundamentally understand how to do it. And I feel like too often Congress's response is, let me just pick a number out of thin air and throw it out there that shows that I care, as opposed to, show me your math. Tell me what it's going to take to rebuild. What are you guys contributing? What are you going to change? And then what do you need us to do? And I think the way you phrased it is the way that things should be. I want to help you, but tell me what you need, as opposed to us in Washington just sending you out a boatload of money to spend.
That's right. No, that's right, Sean. And the other thing we really care about is we don't want to just send money to California where Gavin Newsom decides he's going to rebuild LA in some way that benefits his governorship or future Olympics that's coming to California. That would be incredibly wasteful and it wouldn't help the people of California. We don't want Gavin Newsom and Democrats controlling that state to use the money appropriated for the victims of wildfire to use it to house illegal aliens or somehow affect their future elections in California so that they never lose, which seems to be the situation as it is. But we'll definitely wait and we'll be happy to work with them. We just want to make sure it benefits the victims of wildfire.
All right, I hate to interrupt this great conversation with Marjorie, but do I have a piece of good news for you? You guys know I've been talking about the LifeVac for a while, right? It looks like this. It is something that I say you should have in your house, just like you have a fire extinguisher, just like a first aid kit, in case of a choking accident. It makes anybody a hero. Well, guess what? Somebody was a hero. Somebody who watches this show bought a LifeVac. I got a call from the folks there yesterday. And they said, you're never going to guess what. There was an unfortunate choking incident. Somebody who watches your show and bought a LifeVac saved a life. This is not theoretical. This is actually what happened. This is real, folks. Things like this happen. We've seen it all. That's why police, fire, restaurants, cruise lines all have LifeVacs in them now. You can get one by going to lifevac.net, and it's VAC, lifevac.net. If your kid's school doesn't have one, they'll send one there for free. Go to lifevac.net. A life literally can be saved. I have shown you now it has been done. Do not have one. Get one now. Put it next to your fire extinguisher or your first aid kit. Go to lifevac.net. All right, back to that conversation with Marjorie. I want to get to this Mar-a-Lago meeting, as I said, because I want to get a sense of this priority. But we had this show last week on drones. We talked about what the government knows, what it doesn't know. And then lo and behold, I'm reading your Twitter account and I see This is you. I just flew into DCA, which is Ronald Reagan Airport here, just outside of our nation's capital. Before landing, our pilot announced he had to fly in from another direction due to unauthorized drone activity over the White House. As a member of Congress, as someone who's on the Homeland Security Committee, I feel like we're watching these drones over New Jersey. We're rerouting planes. They're causing, and I don't get the sense from, and I get it, I'm not in the government, that our government has a handle on what's happening. And then I see President Trump the other day saying that we're going to deal with this day one that he gets in office. How concerned are you and are your colleagues about what's happening in our skies?
Sean, I'm extremely concerned, and I'm so glad you brought this up. I was flying into Washington from West Palm Beach yesterday afternoon, and we're approaching into Washington, D.C., making our way to land at DCA, and the pilot comes on and he says that he's having to reroute and come in and land from another direction due to unauthorized drones over the White House. I mean, you talk about shocked. Everybody was looking around like, what? Did we actually hear the pilot say that? I immediately sent a message to Homeland. We've got to have a hearing on this. We need to investigate this. We need answers immediately. But I want to take this to another level because the news came out today, Sean, and I'm sure you saw it. The Chinese drone company DJI, which really dominates the marketplace, the majority of the marketplace with drones, they just lifted their geofencing restrictions on their drones, meaning that their drones will now be able to fly over our military bases. They will now be able to fly over the White House. And this is all because of the Chinese company DJI has lifted that geofencing. This is a direct threat to our national security by China because we know companies in China are owned by the Chinese government. And I'm calling for swift action with our incoming administration. We should ban these drones. We should not allow them to be flown in our airspace. They should not be sold in the United States of America. This is reckless and dangerous, and it's an endangerment to our national security.
Yeah. Okay. I just, the idea that you have to ask somebody to do this is nuts. It's like, this is protecting the people 101, but just walk me back through this. Cause when you say they undid it, so the company, this Chinese company previously, had like embedded technology that didn't allow the drone. So if you bought one, you couldn't fly it over a military base of the White House, but now you can?
That's right. And so before it had technology, it was geofencing.
Right.
So these drones could not fly over secure locations like military bases and like the White House. But the news came out today that DJI has now lifted their geofencing restrictions on their drones. And now,
but the Chinese are lifting their own restrictions and our government's not doing anything?
Bingo. Now remember, Sean,
I can't believe I'm laughing. I cannot. This is insane.
Yeah, it is insane. But remember, we have to remind everyone at home that this is the Biden administration is in charge right now. So don't start blaming President Trump. This is the Biden administration, Democrats, full control. And this is what is happening in America. And they're leaving a national security disaster for us to clean up starting on the 20th. And we could probably go back and talk about these drones flying over New Jersey and other places in the country. Americans are terrified. And I think we need to be taking a hard look at China and definitely hold them accountable.
By the way, regardless of everything you just said, which is like 100%, I would be scared in a plane if the pilot comes on and says, there's drones that we have to, I would worry about a drone affecting, going through the motor or something. I mean, like, there's actual aviation issues. I mean, this is so unbelievably nuts. All right, I can't believe I'm saying I got to move on because this is crazy that we're just going to, but you were down at Mar-a-Lago. Explain what was going on down there, how many people were there, what you guys talked about, and what outcomes are coming.
Okay, and Sean, you know this so well, so I'm just going to tell your listeners because you already know this. We have such an incredible gift with President Trump because he is such a social man. He loves entertaining. He loves socializing. He loves having guests come to Mar-a-Lago. And guests have been coming from all over the world. I was talking with the police at the airport yesterday, and they said 2 different queens from 2 different countries flew in on the same day. We're looking at dignitaries, presidents from countries, some of the richest, most successful people in the world are all coming in every day, Sean, every single day.
Back 8 years ago, and I know this sounds so stupid, but I'm sure you've noticed the same thing. 8 years ago when we were down there, we'd walk around and it was nice, whatever. And I always said, oh gosh, it's a shame the gift shop's closed. The last I went down there, a few weeks ago, and like they've now at least, it's like, hey, if all these people are coming down, make sure that they can get some swag from Mar-a-lago to go home and say, I was there.
Right. Absolutely. So President Trump invited members of Congress, influential members of Congress, that he needs he needs to hear our voices on what to do with the budget reconciliation that is coming up. Extremely important bills we're going to be working on and voting on. And so he had all of us come in 4 different groups, 4 different dinners. So the different angles from the conference, we're a diverse group. Democrats talk about diversity. Republicans are a diverse group in ideology in our conference. And so at our meeting, we talked a lot about the debt ceiling, which is a major problem. That is an unavoidable problem that we will have to deal with. We talked about California wildfires and appropriations. President Trump himself is going to go to LA and look at all the damage on the ground, talk to firefighters, talk to residents, talk to victims. He'll get with the people. That's what he does best. But we also talked about the reconciliation bill that we will have to write. We're in the process of working on that and making it one big, beautiful bill like President Trump is asking us to do. So that was our conversation, and we're excited to get to work.
All right. First, so he said to you guys, hey, I'm going to go to LA.
He's going. He's going.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, did he actually say, I'm going to LA?
Yeah, he's going.
Awesome. Yep. All right, there we go. Breaking news. And then does that, when you say one big, beautiful bill, I know that's the phrase he uses, but have you guys come to an agreement that it's one bill versus 2?
Well, we still have different members of the conference that would like it to be in 2 bills, but our biggest chance for success is one bill before Republicans lose their courage or start worrying about their next re-election campaign.
All right, so make the case,
Trump.
like why, for the person out there that's listening and says, I don't, like, what's the difference? What's 1 versus 2 mean?
Well, one bill would be more focused on border, which we all want to focus on that, and also energy, getting oil and gas booming again and making it America first. Those are 2 huge priorities of President Trump's administration, also for Republicans in Congress. And then we want to wrap in the tax bill, which is so incredibly important. So one bill would have those 3 in there: border, energy, and taxes. The tax bill is so important because we've got to rip the economy open and get people making money again so they can afford life here in America. The people that wanted in 2 bills want to separate taxes out and do it separately later on in the summertime. But those of us that are business leaders and own companies, we know how important it is to get the tax bill done as soon as possible. And companies have to plan. That's another thing. If we wait until late in the summer, these companies are going to be planning based on a massive tax increase that comes if the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires, or they're going to be planning based on old information. So we want to equip business leaders and Americans with everything they need, and we want to do it fast in one big bill.
You come to Congress with a business background. You've made a payroll. You've made money. I mean, meaning that you've had to figure out how to navigate regulations. When you talk to your colleagues, is that something that you go, hey, that's nice, buddy, but you don't know what it's like to actually, I think to your point about predictability, like a lot of these businesses are like, hey, great, what are the taxes going to be in 6 months, in 12 months? How does that, like when you're having these discussions amongst your colleagues or at the conference meetings, how much does that come up? Because we talked about California, right? But it's the same kind of stuff with taxes. Like there's a degree of like, hey, I actually know what it's like to make a payroll.
Yeah. It doesn't come up enough, Sean, but the problem is, and no offense to some of my colleagues, we have too many attorneys in Congress. And, attorneys are those people that you hate them, but you need them. And that's the reality. So they consider themselves experts of the law, and they have strong opinions, and they love to debate because they come from courtroom experience. But those of us that are business leaders and successful business people that have had to risk it all, know how to make a payroll, understand planning that you have to do 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5, 10 years in advance in order to stay in business. We think that's how the government should be run, and that would be the right approach to budgeting, appropriations, hiring and firing. We need to fire a lot of federal workers. And I'll add this one, Sean, because this is incredibly important. I am so on board with President Trump for his plans with Greenland and the Panama Canal, because as a business owner, I can tell you right now, we have to expand our revenue and opportunities for our country. That is extremely important. Otherwise, we will never climb our way out of this $36 trillion deficit that we are in. We cannot cut enough spending. Even if we cut all the spending of the entire government, think about this, Sean, literally said, we aren't paying for anything. Our new budget is zero. Our interest is compounding so fast, we can still never climb our way out of $36 trillion in debt. So I love the idea of opportunity, expansion, business opportunities, and more revenue and growth for the United States of America with Greenland and the Panama Canal.
You know, when you say cut spending, it's music to my ears. $36 trillion in debt is a national security issue. It's an issue that affects the future of our country. Yes. I love hearing you say that. Is this a new tune that other members of Congress, or is this Marjorie Taylor Greene as fighting this on her own? Like, do you think that other members are with you on this?
No, we do have other members. There's a lot of members that are very on board with cutting spending. But I think it's one of the most important things we can do. And that's why I'm so excited about my subcommittee on DOGE. We are going to take a hard dive into these departments, into these different sectors of government, and the way American taxpayer dollars have been spent. And we are going to make solutions and provide solutions on how to solve these problems, because we've had enough of the 5-minute committee hearing videos. We've had enough of the strongly worded letters. We need real solutions that Congress can take action on and actually fix these problems. Yeah,
my advice, not that everyone cares, but I really think the more that you can start with some tangible ideas that the American taxpayer says, wow, that really is a waste. It may not be some of the biggest chunks, but I think from a PR standpoint, getting people on board with understanding the amount of waste, inefficiency, duplicity that exists in our federal government. So they say, wow, I worked really hard today. I sent Washington money and this is how they used it. Yeah, I'm on the team. Keep going, right? I think we need to build consensus in America that we all get it. Taxes are a way of life. They're right there with death. But the bottom line is I don't want to pay any more than I have to, and I want Washington to be responsible with what I send it.
Totally agree. You and I are 100% aligned there. And it's easy to find common ground where it's just common sense. Like, why are we spending this money?
I loved when Pete Hegseth said today in his hearing, wow, the Pentagon should actually have to pass an audit. Oh, my God. You mean you should actually have to know how much money you're getting before you ask for a massive raise?
Isn't that incredible?
That's insane.
It is insane. I serve on oversight, and every single year we're like, the Pentagon failed their audit again. I mean, my goodness, what Fortune 500 company, what publicly traded company would be able to even pop their head up publicly if they failed their audit year after year?
No, what kid? When my son comes to me and says, can I have $5? I said, what did you do with the 5 that I gave you last week? And he'll say, okay, I spent this, this, and this. And I'm like, sometimes I'll quibble with how he spent it, but at least he can account for it. You know, these guys are like, can we get billions of dollars more? We have no clue what we did with the last billions you gave us, right? That's what I think is critical to me. The other thing, you mentioned the president's agenda. Before I let you go, I just want to, you were the person that when the president said that he wanted to rename the Gulf of Mexico, you went like, got it. And you went and filed legislation right away to change it to the Gulf of America. Mm-hmm. I sort of started doing some research. I see your Twitter account, all these members are jumping on with you. Is this a legislative fix? How does this work? And how successful do you think you're going to be?
It's both. So
Okay.
President Trump can come in, he can write an executive order that the Gulf of Mexico is now renamed and should be called the Gulf of America. But it is a legislative fix because let me tell you, we constantly in Congress rename post offices all the time. And you have seen ridiculous things like military bases being renamed, all these different things being renamed because Democrats are so offended by history. Well, we have to do it legislatively because we have to pay for maps to be changed. And that costs money, right? It's not a significant amount of money, but it's an important change. And so we feel like doing it through Congress and aligning with President Trump and what he wants of changing the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America is very much the best America first thing we can do. It's also important, Sean, because let's also realize that it's our country, it's Americans that pay for this, is we police the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. It's our military that goes out and fights drug dealers coming from Mexico, human trafficking coming from Mexico, and also keeps the United States safe through the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. So the Gulf of Mexico doesn't deserve that name. It should be the Gulf of America because America is in charge of those waters.
You know, it's honest. You make a very compelling case, I'll be honest with you. But I actually, when he initially said it, I think it's actually more fair because we're North America, South America, so it actually represents everybody that it touches. I thought it was more about the Americas, but I think you make an equally compelling case why we should get the name for it because if we're going to do all the work. But either way, I think it's a pretty, I'm good with it. Have you gotten any bipartisan support?
I haven't heard anything from Democrats, but I don't think they're going to be against it. I mean, how are they going to fight that? Well, no, actually, I take that back. Of course they're going to fight it.
Yeah.
They love Mexico. They love all the people of Mexico. They serve the people of Mexico, and they love to pay for the people of Mexico.
I just think that they're against anything that President Trump wants more than anything. But Congresswoman, I appreciate you joining us and everything you're fighting for. Thanks so much for being with us, and we look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you, Sean. It's always a good time.
It is. Thank you. Guys, what an amazing conversation. Another great show. We've got so much more lined up with you. Senator Ron Johnson's going to be with us later this week. We got so much more going on, bringing you all the guests. I got a few surprises coming your way. Tune in every day. Go to my newsletter, SeanSpicer.com, to stay up to date with everything. See you back here tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.